This is the main foyer of Neverland's main house, the room where Michael Jackson greeted his closest friends. These walls were covered in enormous paintings, and there was a warmth here that photographs never fully captured. A statue of a butler holding a tray of cookies stood near the entrance, Michael's way of welcoming guests before they had even said a word. At the far end of the foyer, a massive two-sided marble clock once stood so heavy that workers had to reinforce the floor beneath it just to hold the big weight. Nothing here was ordinary, nothing was accidental, and nothing was small. 17 years after his death, Neverland still does not feel like ordinary real estate. It feels like a memory that refuses to disappear. Walk through it and the scale of everything. The ceilings, the corridors, the land stretching out beyond the windows still carries the weight of what this place once was. And it is back in the conversation, not because it was listed for sale, but because Hollywood returned here in 2024. Crews filming the Michael biopic used this property as a location, pulling Neverland back into the spotlight and reminding the world that this estate remains one of the most talked about properties in pop culture history. For a place that spent years in silence, that return felt almost symbolic, like the ranch itself had been waiting. Down the stairs, the master bedroom, the enormous kitchen, with staff in uniforms preparing meals around the clock, the dining room, and deeper inside, a small door leading somewhere else entirely, a tight, hidden space whose purpose is still unclear. In a house full of secret panels and hidden compartments, it is hard to know where the practical ends and the private begins. From the foyer, you step down into the main living room, once filled with couches, chairs and rugs arranged around a grand piano in the corner. The top of that piano was covered entirely in framed photographs. Michael and his family, Michael and his friends, dozens of them lined up edge to edge, turning a musical instrument into something closer to a personal altar. This was not a showroom. It was a home built around the things and the people he loved most. Today, the property is privately owned, renamed Sycamore Valley Ranch, and has been in the hands of billionaire Ron Burkle since 2020, when he purchased it for $22 million. That number alone tells the story of how far it had fallen. Jackson originally bought the ranch in 1988 for around $17 million, then poured roughly $35 million into transforming it. A 13,000-square-foot French country home surrounded by a lake, a train station, a movie theater, and amusement park grounds. This was not a mansion, it was a world. Here is what Michael recreated in the spirit of Disneyland, the famous train station. Step inside and you find a full bank of monitors, space for refreshments, and all the trappings of a real working station. Because it was one, guests did not just arrive at Neverland, they were received by it. The train, the station, the landscaping that greeted you on the way in, all of it was designed to shift your sense of where you were. You were not visiting a house. You were entering somewhere else entirely. Jackson named the estate after Peter Pan's Neverland, the place where a boy never grows up. That choice said everything. He had been performing professionally since childhood, managed and shaped by an industry that left little room for just being a kid. By the time he was famous enough to build something like this, he built it backwards. Not as a monument to where he had arrived, but as a recreation of what he had missed. That is why it looked less like a celebrity home and more like a self-contained universe. A Ferris wheel, a petting zoo, a rail system, whimsical gardens unlike anywhere else on Earth. It was not built to impress, it was built to protect. Staff who worked here described an environment unlike any other. It took time to adjust to, they said, preparing guest rooms, setting up the movie theater with popcorn and ice cream, keeping pace with constant deliveries from overseas. Things Michael had gathered and wanted, placed just so, though there was rarely enough room for all of it. His bedroom alone was described as the size of a home, 2 stories, a loft with a second bed above, walk-in closets on both sides, a large jacuzzi, hardwood floors throughout. The property included a 50-seat movie theater, a 4-acre lake with a waterfall, a basketball court, a tennis court, guest houses, a barn, a firehouse, a carousel, and a petting zoo with llamas, chimpanzees, and other animals. A life-size train ran across the grounds. Near the fireplace in the living room stood a pedestal holding an Academy Award. The 1939 Best Picture Oscar for Gone with the Wind, purchased for $1.5 million and placed on a rotating stand so guests could admire it from every angle. The kitchen floors were sourced from an 18th century French chateau, dismantled in France, shipped to the United States, and reassembled here on site by craftsmen who spent years on the work. Every detail had a story. Every object had been chosen deliberately and placed with meaning. This is the private section of the home. A security code panel controls access to the master suite. Inside the cedar closet, another panel, hidden behind hanging clothes. Triple locks, a concealed section behind the wall. What he kept there, no one knows for certain. In a house this carefully constructed, that kind of privacy was not accidental. Every hidden compartment, every security measure was another layer of the same instinct. The desire to have somewhere entirely his own, entirely controlled, entirely safe. But the fairy tale did not last. Jackson left Neverland after the 2005 trial and never returned. The 2003 police raid had changed everything. Officers arrived with search warrants and moved through rooms that had been built for joy. The legal pressure, the months of testimony, the public scrutiny, all of it attached itself to this place permanently. Returning would have meant walking back into a space that no longer felt like his own. So he did not. In 2008, he defaulted on a $24.5 million loan tied to the ranch. After his death in 2009, the petting zoo and rides were removed. The amusement park that had defined Neverland disappeared piece by piece. Not all at once, but gradually, methodically, until what remained was land and buildings, stripped of the magic that had made them mean something. The property was first listed at $100 million in 2015, then dropped to $67 million, then $31 million, before finally selling in 2020 for $22 million. Jackson had spent more than $50 million acquiring and developing the ranch. It sold for less than half of that. The market had spoken. Neverland without Michael Jackson was simply a large piece of land in Santa Barbara County with some unusual structures on it. As for the rides, they were sold off and showed up at fairs across California, Oregon, and Washington. Some found permanent homes at Coney Island and Beach Bend Park. The pieces of a private fantasy scattered across the country, carrying strangers who had no idea where any of it had come from. The magic of Neverland did not just disappear. It went on the road. It kept moving. By 2022, county officials confirmed active work underway on the property. Roofing, electrical, structural repairs. The current owner has been making good on a commitment to restore what remains. Neverland is no longer an abandoned shell. It is a privately controlled estate, still being worked on, still off limits to the public, but no longer falling apart. In 2024, filming permits confirmed that the Michael biopic shot dialogue scenes, petting zoo sequences, and stunt work here. The ranch that had sat silent for years was pulled back into the spotlight by a film about the man who built it. And then came another twist. The original cut included a scene depicting the 1993 raid at Neverland. Some footage was actually filmed, but legal complications tied to Jackson's settlement with the Chandler family made it impossible to use. So Neverland ended up serving two roles at once: a real filming location and the exact place where the film had to stop telling its story. This estate spans 2,700 acres. At its peak, it held as many as 22 structures, a zoo, amusement rides, and landscaping that literally spelled out the word Neverland across the grounds. Even now, stripped of most of its original spectacle, the sheer scale makes it feel less like a residence and more like a territory. Fans still carve messages into the rocks at the entrance. Thank you for everything. Mexico will always love you. Happy birthday, Michael. We miss you. Not the words people leave at real estate. They are the words people leave at sacred ground. And that is exactly what Neverland became. Not because anyone planned it that way, but because the person who built it poured enough of himself into every corner of it that the place absorbed him. The place was built to be joyful, childlike, and safe. It became one of the most scrutinized private properties in modern history. Jackson built it to turn a feeling into a place. And then the world turned that place into evidence, rumor, legend, and eventually a movie set. From fantasy to fallout to partial restoration, that arc is what gives Neverland its staying power. The rides are gone. The name has changed. The land belongs to someone else. But the story is still written into every acre of it. And that is why Neverland will keep coming back into the conversation every time his life does. It refuses to stay out of the story, just like he does.